for members of the council to receive questions from registered electors of the town before the formal meeting commences. When providing your name and address prior to addressing the meeting, please confirm or otherwise that you consent to your personal details being recorded in the minutes. Your personal data will be processed as directed by GDPR Article 5. This meeting will be recorded and will be made available on the Town Council YouTube channel. The whole of the meeting will be recorded, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any member of the public has an objection to being filmed, please make yourself known to the Mayor or the Town Clerk before the start of the meeting. That's a no, I think. No. Thank you. Right, next we have the Mayor's Chaplain. And could I just say to Jeff, we haven't actually met up face to face for so many months now, but I've probably seen more of you with the recordings that come out on a Sunday and in the week. So, but we are hoping to meet up quite soon. But I just wonder, if you could lead us, obviously, in prayer. We haven't had the opportunity for a few months, but I'll hand over to you for a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you very much. Let's pray together. The Old Testament in Jeremiah 29 encourages us to seek the prosperity and work for the good of the place that we are. So, Father God, we come to you on behalf of the town and community of Faversham and thank you for it. We pray for the work that shall be done tonight, for the good and well-being of the people of the town. Lord, coming towards the end of what has been such a challenging year, we pray that we might balance economic necessity with compassion, that we would seek the good of the youngsters of our town. We pray for the schools, the teachers and support staff facing such amazing challenges at the moment, for parents and carers. We pray too for the vulnerable and the elderly and all those working locally in the health services and social care. We think about those who work on behalf of us to serve in terms of the security and safety of our town, beacons of honesty, goodness and justice. We thank you for those who, with their joy and creativity, seek to lift our spirits. We pray for energy for all of us in the part that we play in this community that we love so much, and ask that you would prosper the efforts of those seeking the good of this place in the name of the Lord Jesus. Amen.
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 Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. And we are aware all our church leaders in the town have played their part. And I do have certificates, but I haven't got round to giving them out yet. But I will tie up with you later this week. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, and now we have Mr. Brian Jeffries. I think I could see him. A presentation on the Clearfield Solar Cycleway. We do have a maximum of 10 minutes here, so if I could ask him to come straight in. I can't see him on the screen, but you're there, aren't you, Brian?
Yes, hello there, and thank you for the invite. Just seeing whether it's possible to share my screen so you don't see my ugly face.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Right,
share your screen.
Start that now.
Thank you.
And then, hello there. Can everyone see that?
No.
Not yet.
Right. Okay. Let's try that.
Oh, yes. Something coming. Yes.
Yeah, well, we're over the first obstacle, which is great. So please bear with me here. I'm obviously I'm out of my comfort zone, and this is something I'm really not used to. But I'm going to speak from the heart, and hopefully it will come good. So anyway, I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening about the Solar Cycleway. I alluded to lots of stuff last month when I spoke off the cuff. But if I crack on with this, about 18 months ago, nearly 2 years ago, I'd done a talk for the Planning Inspectorate. I'd done a talk at the Planning Inspectorate regarding the Solar Cycleway. And over that time, we've gained a lot of a library of information which we are collating on our website, and now we believe is the time to bring this campaign to the forefront of people's attention. The vision here, you know, we believe that cycling is good for everyone and the environment, and to create safe places and cycleways encourages people onto bikes. You know, imagine, you know, can you remember where the first place was where you learnt to ride your bike? You know, if we can try and have areas like this, you know, locally, I think this will be a fantastic asset. Local cycleways connect people to places. You know, I absolutely love the idea that there's a potential route to go to Faversham's nearest beach. I just think that's, you know, it's just such a great, you know, logical idea. You know, cycling also improves health, you know, mental and physical. You know, hopefully everyone's been down to the marsh and realised just what a beautiful place it actually is. It is going to change, and you know, for good or for bad, depending on people's views on it. But what we've got to do is try and embrace it instead of resent it. And I think by sort of getting people to, you know, physically explore it and also see how wonderful the wildlife is can only have great benefits for mental well-being too. And of course, there's fewer car journeys, which makes the environment a better place. But I'm no eco warrior, and you know, this is a logical plan. I live locally. I live on the doorstep of this proposal, and I just feel that you know, the developer has to give something back. Now the proposal here is the proposal is to connect Faversham, Sea Salter, and Whitstable with an off-road cycleway through the largest solar park in Europe, and that would be from Nagden to the Sportsman, using the existing or the majority of the existing farm track that's currently. So there's about sort of a 60% infrastructure actually already there where the existing farm track is. But it's to create a safer alternative for cyclists who commute between Faversham, Sea Salter, and Whitstable, bearing in mind that the Sea Salter Head Hill Road is going to have 100 to 150 HGV and LGV movements every day for a 2-year period. So this is another way that the developer can mitigate for the safety of the cyclists and pedestrians along the Route 1 cycle network that links Faversham to Whitstable. It's going to also provide opportunities for people to engage with the environment in an area of natural beauty. As I said, it is a beautiful place, but it is going to change. But what we need to do is encourage people to get out and just see how wonderful it actually is. Yes, there are going to be you know, 1 million solar panels there, but this is going to happen. It's there for the next 40 years, so we need to embrace it. You know. We need to deliver a lasting legacy for our community, which is family friendly, good for the environment and your health. We are custodians of this tiny bit of Great Britain where we live, and we have to do the right thing, you know. And I believe that this is an ideal opportunity, a golden opportunity in which to do something fantastic for our local community. Obviously, we need to work collaboratively with Cleve Hill Solar Park, Big Wildlife Trust, and the landowners and the public sector and cycling organisation. This needs to be an effort, not just from me, but from everyone, because I don't have all the answers. I'm no expert. I'm just average Bry who just happens to love this place where I live and want to make this place better. But I can't emphasize enough. We need your help, you know, because as I said, I don't have all the answers. Now, our supporters over the last 2 months since we've launched the website, we've gained nearly 250 supporters on our website that have signed up, and we've gained 500 followers across social media. County Council last week gave their approval and are very supportive and have suggested, which I think this could be, you know, really significant, and they've suggested that they could maintain the path once it is built. So for them to actually turn around and say that, and they've suggested that they can do that because it's in the public interest, and you know, and that they could well be prepared to fund the maintenance of it going forward, which I think is huge. You know, I genuinely do. Tim Valentine and Alistair Gould, our borough councillors here in Graveney, are extremely supportive of the idea, and so are British Cycling UK Spokes and Sustrans have been supportive from the word go, and Kent Wildlife are also supportive of the scheme through the site. But we've also garnering support from local primary and secondary schools, and hopefully are going to start educational initiative that raises the profile of cycling locally. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be huge barriers to overcome this, and I'm not naive enough to think this is going to be simple. But we don't do things because they are easy. We do things because they are hard. And engaging and working with a developer to implement this proposal is going to be key. Now, the developer, again, in a diplomatic kind of way, have been useless. So we need to make sure that we hold them to account, and that is, that is what I'm hoping that you guys can help me deliver as well. And bearing in mind that the planning inspectorate said in their summing up that the proposed cycle route improvements did not form part of the application. Consequently, we are unable to give this specific proposal any weight. However, and despite this, we note that the applicant has confirmed that this is open to ongoing discussions about the proposals. Now, they've gone very quiet, and I need your help to re-energise and focus them a little bit more. Obviously, there's also the human and wildlife interaction, which has its barriers. But what we need to try and do is make sure that we work together, with local wildlife agencies to make sure that this proposal is managed correctly. We need to make sure that we step back a little bit and actually realise that this bit of land has been scrutinised more than any other little bit of land in the last few years about the wildlife, for the fact that the solar farm is being built there in the first place. So we do have a library of resource that we can tap into to find out how it's going to affect the wildlife. Also, the surface, it has to be sufficient, not just for cyclists, but for families and disabled. This isn't just about a cycleway. This is also about a multi-user path that is accessible for disabled, for young, for everyone, for people with prams. So we have to make sure that the surface is right here. And also, it does go through an SSI and Ramsar site. However, in our research, we've found, and I didn't realise this at all, but the cycle path that leads from the old pirate ship, as I would call it, to Magden, the cycle path that's on the top by the creek there, actually goes through an SSSI site and a Ramsar site. So the mapping has actually confirmed that. And also there are other examples between Reculver and Minnis Bay of cycleways that go through SSI and Ramsar sites. And that is just locally, and for that to actually happen to be on our proposal, it's quite startling, really.
Brilliant.
But there are also going to be funding challenges ahead. So just bear with me. Oh, what do I do here? Oh, right. So there's going to be funding challenges. British Cycling and Cycling UK are teaming up to work with a developer on accessing relevant funding, which may be available. So they're working together to try and find streams of funding. For example, there's local sources of funding. So there is the Edward Vincent Trust, there's the Graveney and Goodnson Trust. There's national funding from cycling organisations, from the National Lottery, and many more. But how can you help us? We need you, if it's at all possible, to actively and vocally support the campaign, be it through distribution of posters or encouraging shops to put posters up, to engaging with the people locally. Obviously, we've just engaged with people on social media, which is a very small percentage of the population, but we need people to be made much more aware of this, because I dare say it, there's a lot of people in Faversham don't even realise that the solar farm is actually happening on our doorstep, and it's just to educate and show the benefits of this proposal, as I say, the cycleway proposal in this, and also to share the campaign through your communication channels with the local communities to increase the levels of support and lobbying the relevant parties, including the developer. I really feel that we need to again work collaboratively, but it needs to not just come from me. It needs to come from everyone, for this to be achieved. Also, to write to our local MP and Swale Borough Councils and Kent County Council to hopefully make sure that they are committed to taking this forward. One of the other things that I would suggest is that, you know, the Faversham Town Council is made up of a coalition of all different parties, from, you know, Labour, Liberal Democrats, Conservatives. You know, you must have Green contacts as well. And one of the big things here is actually to go away to your respective parties and to actually say to them, you know, please get on board with this. This makes really good sense. This makes good sense, you know, for hopefully everything that I've outlined. And hopefully that brings the end. I've got a little short video, if it works, and it gives you an insight roughly. So this is from the end of Nagden Barn going out to the sea wall. Can everyone see the video?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. And obviously this is the current farm track that takes you out to the seawall as is. Now on the right hand side coming up, that is me, by the way, going very slow because I'd had too many sausages for breakfast in the morning. But here on the right hand side is where the footpath will go across to the site, and that has always been in there, and that is going to continue to carry on. But to the left hand side, as it now starts forking away to the left hand side, this path won't have any access going forward after the development in spring 2021, when hopefully when they're saying that they're going to build the solar farm. So we will not have any access going down to the sluice, as we call it, anymore. But basically, you know, obviously there's no solar panels there now. Fencing is going to be erected. You know, the vision is going to change, but what we need to do is embrace it and not resent it. And that is my presentation. If you've got any questions,
thank you so much, Brian. Your passion for this project, is evident. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm sure, I don't know if any of the councils have got any questions for Brian, or whether we go away. I mean, I certainly feel like I need to support this project. Any questions for Brian? Councillor Barker.
Not really a question as such, but I'm sure, just in case you don't know, Brian, there is an item on the agenda where Councillor Saunders is putting forward a motion of support, and he's also at another meeting at Solborough Council, and should he not be available, I'll be putting forward the motion myself. So hopefully you'll get full-blooded support from the council tonight, and thank you very much. I
really would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your enthusiasm and yes, your foresight. We need people like you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
Right, item 1 on the agenda, to receive apologies and acceptance for reasons for absence.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, we just need to ask if there's any other public questions.
Oh, any other?
Moving to the meeting.
Is the half an hour not up yet? No. Thank you. Any other questions? No? I'm not hearing any. No. So we can move on to apologies.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
I've received apologies from Councillor Perkin and Saunders.
Thank you.
I know Councillor Thomas is at the JTB still. I'm sure he would have meant to send us apologies.
He has sent apologies, but he is also in the room as well here.
Oh, terrific.
So
yeah.
But yeah, he
Good.
did give
got
apologies,
the same bus that
but
I did back from
he's here.
Good.
Said he may be late. Right, declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Members who have an interest to declare on any item on the agenda must declare the existence and nature of it at the start of the meeting and act in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct, S27 Localism Act. That looks like no, so fine. We can go to item 3, previous minutes and matters to report. Any comments? No, no comment. Would anyone like to propose we accept the minutes? Councillor Martin, Councillor Barker. Are you seconding?
Yes, happy to
Yeah.
second.
Sorry, you were mute. Can we all vote on that then? Thank you. All of us voted there. Oh, right, we've done that. Mayor's announcement.
Madam Mayor,
Sorry,
just to be clear, myself and Councillor Jackson did not vote on that one, as I don't think we were here. So I'm assuming you're abstaining. I know I am.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why.
do not voting on that. Thank you. I think that's enough anyway to caveat. Right, item 4, Mayor's announcement. Well, I will keep it very short tonight. There has been lots going on, small things in the community, and much encouragement all round, I think, the last month or so. This is the last meeting of our year. We will be out of 2020. We'll be into 2021 for our next town council meeting. So I'd just like to take a minute to remember all those who have died during this year, this pandemic year, and hope that next year we can have some sort of remembrance service to take place. Thinking particularly of Miles, Mr. Magic, who died just 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was a huge part of this community for those of us that have been here year after year. He really was. And so it would be good if perhaps next year we could have some sort of remembrance. I did attend 3 remembrance services this year. That's never happened before because we recorded one. We had one on the Sunday, we had one on the Wednesday. And I just have to thank those that arranged it. They were very moving services. And I think it made us all realise what we've had has not been easy, but certainly the war was a very different story. And we're very grateful to all the people that organised those events. All the regular meetings, obviously, we've had 2020 Neighbourhood Plan. Other topics have been added. They've all been virtual. I'm sure we all actually are hoping to return to face-to-face meetings as soon as possible. Christmas card competition. I visited Ethelbert Road School, obviously presented the prize outside the school. A lovely young lady, hopefully you'll all get a card. I opened the new Aldi. That was a brilliant morning, I must say. And they employed 22 new employees, most of whom were local. So that was very encouraging. And a huge thank you to Faversham Lakes. I'm sure we all want to thank them, and the shops, the businesses, and all the displays in the town. I don't know about you, but I am so impressed. They've all made an extra special effort. And our Gunpowder WI ladies, well, they've been fantastic. All their knitted arrangements have brought lots of smiles. And then last week we had our National Tree Week, which I have to say, Councillor Williams is there. It was fantastic. I was there for a few days and people were really pleased with what you're trying to achieve here. Next week, I hope to go to, Thursday actually, each school to take them a tree to plant. Obviously, I can't go in and help them plant it this year, but maybe next year, take a plaque and put it by the tree to say this was planted in the pandemic year, COVID-19 2020, and let it be there as a reminder of this year. I have to say the tree trail in the recreation ground, anyone who hasn't been to the recreation ground, do go. It's a really good tree trail, and Councillor Thomas not here, can't see him at the minute, but it will be fantastic in the new year when we have an official little opening of our recreation ground. It really has been a jewel this year and is looking fantastic. And there's lots of little things being done by residents. If only I could keep a note of them all for you. There is a lot of positivity in our community, and I just think it hasn't been a great year in many ways, but it's been a very positive year in lots of other ways. So thank you very much, everyone who's contributing. And I think particularly you councillors, I have to tell you, yet again this week, I have been told more than once, doing a great job. So carry on. Thank you. Right, that's the Mayor's announcements. Right, item 5.
There's been a lot of very hard work gone in to making it possible to replace the Christmas dinner for the old people with.
With that, I'd missed that. Sorry, Christmas dinner for the old people. Can't hear.
I don't think that was a question. I think just somebody was on mute. So,
Oh, it would be great if we could do, but obviously lots of things can't happen just at the moment. But there's positive that, you know, the vaccine's coming, and I think everybody's doing everything that is right to be doing. We shouldn't be doing things that are technically not right at the moment, as much as we miss them. So any other questions on that? No. Right, item 5, annual governance and accountability return. To note the conclusion of, sorry,
Madam Mayor, I think Councillor BJ Martin wanted to speak.
Right, Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much for that, Madam Mayor. My understanding is that some of the schools in the local area have had to announce early closures for Christmas due to outbreaks of COVID-19 within the staffing community. So it may be worth double checking in the diary. Perhaps we may have to hold some of these trees a little bit further back until staff are available to take delivery.
You're quite right there. I did hear that this evening. Sadly, they've had to, but I'm sure they're having virtual lessons from home. Makes it safer. Councillor Martin's nodding. I've also just had a phone call from Jersey. The daughter over there, they're higher than us now over there, an island. So it's just spread like wildfire this last week, and they're shutting down. So item 5, I think we can go to annual governance and accountability return. To note the conclusion of the annual governance and accountability return to end of year March 2020. Do we need discussion on this, or?
Could I just ask for a proposer and seconder to note it, please?
Right, thank you. I think we've all looked at it.
I'll propose.
Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I'll propose it, and I believe Councillor Barker is seconding me again.
I believe it. There's no other comments, so yeah, we're all happy with that. Yes. Fine, thank you. Item 6, 20's Plenty, to receive the minutes of 20's Plenty Committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Please make it.
Yes, I would like to propose that the members do accept the minutes of the 20's Plenty Committee meeting held on the 5th of November. Just a couple of words before that from myself. Minute number 71, just an update on that. I mistakenly thought it was Swale. I'm now contacting KCC in regard to Mr. Chris Oswald-Jones' suggestion that Love Lane should be reduced from a 40-mile-an-hour zone to a 30-mile-an-hour zone. So just to assure Mr. Oswald-Jones that I'll pursue that with Kent County Council rather than Swale Borough Council. The other point is that Bisonwood planters have now been repositioned. Personally, I think they're a lot better now where they are, and the road markings have been improved as well. So as I said, I'm proposing that the council accept these minutes. I just need a seconder, please.
Thank you for sorting that.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Jackson, yes. And can we all vote on that? Yes, thank you. And we have item 7, climate and biodiversity, to receive the minutes from Councillor Williams. Can't see. Oh yes, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to cover a few points of the minutes, and there is a recommendation which I'll go through at the end. As many of you will know, one of the main points of conversation at the last meeting was around the tree planting project, the tree giveaway, which at the time of the meeting we wasn't sure whether it would go ahead, but luckily we managed to find a really good booking system. I'd like to thank Town Clerk and indeed the other members of staff for getting that together, because that was a really great effort. But the majority of trees have now been distributed, so it's 1,000 trees in total. There's still some left to distribute, but also to plant by the Town Council ourselves. That will be completed this week, so that's a positive. One of the other things that we've been investigating is living roofs for bus shelters. We've had a meeting with Clear Channel, who operate them, and that's being investigated at the moment. So that's something we're hoping that we may be able to look to do next year. And as for those that don't really know what that means, it's basically a green roof on top of the bus shelters in Faversham, or at least a couple of them. Other than that, really, we went through a few other points, but it's all kind of in the minutes there. The recommendation from this minutes is that the Climate Biodiversity Committee become responsible for the allotments. So we assist Adam Andrews in his work on the allotments. So if I could make that recommendation, I'll propose that recommendation, please.
You would, yes. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments before we vote? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, just to be very, very clear, I'm sure we all understand that Councillor Williams, when he talks about a green bus shelter roof, he does mean a living roof, not a painted green roof. But just for the benefit, in case anybody picks it up on YouTube further on down the road that thinks we just want to paint the roofs on the bus shelters green, that's not the case. And secondly, just to give a big well done to the Climate and Biodiversity Committee on the free tree giveaway. I've had members of other councils contact me to say what a wonderful job it was and what a wonderful, great idea, and they're planning on nicking it for next year. So big kudos to the Climate and Biodiversity Committee for that.
Absolutely. So if we all vote on that then with that recommendation. Yeah. Thank you. Lovely. Good.
Madam Mayor, if I may propose that we accept the minutes.
Yes, sorry, yes, we will.
Thank you.
And seconder for the minutes is Councillor Martin. And we can all vote on accepting the minutes. Okay, thank you. Item 8, Policy and Finance. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
So I think there was a fairly packed agenda for the meeting, most of which was reserved for lengthy discussions around the community grants, which were deferred from kind of earlier in the year. Is at the beginning of this civic year, we spent much of our time looking at specific support for the community through kind of ad hoc grants. We had a good degree of response to the grants, but I'll come to that in a second. Before we actually reached there, we, I guess, completed a piece of work that also started at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, which was initially instigated by Councillor Saunders around looking at renewal of the town, and its primary objective was to work out how the town council could work in collaboration with various parties around the town to ensure that several community assets could be protected through the economic consequences of the COVID pandemic. The upshot of that was that we've agreed as a council, and I think we could, the last council meeting, for for the creation of a lottery, and a lottery working group has been set up under Policy and Finance to ensure the implementation of that programme. So we're looking forward now, as a result of the work put in, to a community lottery which will begin Easter weekend of 2021. And the hope very much is that the funds that will provide will help sustain some pretty important community assets to us all, which is a very positive outcome, I think. The community grants then, the Town Clerk, you may have to help me. I'm not sure whether we need to go through each one independently, or I can summarise the output and we then work out if there are any questions or challenges to accepting that as a full recommendation.
I think the easiest if you could do it as a block, unless anybody's got any specific objections to any individual ones.
Okay. Before I do that then and go through it all as a block, and we can all vote collectively, hopefully, it was just to note that 2 of the grant applications were deferred to the Youth Working Group, very specifically the Creed Outdoor Learning Trust and the West Faversham Community Association drop-in centre. The youth group then have since resolved to push that back to Policy and Finance and the community grants process. But it's worth noting, in the interim and shortly after the closure of the grants application process, we received a further request from the Physic Garden, which the Policy and Finance Committee will have to review when it next meets, about whether primarily to accept that and then to whether we recommend it forward to the Town Council. As a consequence of that application, I would like to push back again the 2 requests for funding from Creed Outdoor Learning Trust and the West Faversham Community Association back to the Youth Working Group, who have ample budget left for them to accept that. As a consequence of that, I am asking us to follow the exact minutes of this meeting and to resolve the recommendations that were put forward, which are fairly clear on the table on section 1.188 on the minutes. So I'm going to propose that we accept those recommendations for payments of grants, and I look forward to getting a seconder or any questions. Councillor Jackson, I think, seconded.
Yes, it's a comment really. In this day of COVID, when warmth, housing and food is a main priority and employment next, I think, maybe you didn't have any grants come forward for food banks, etc. Perhaps you could clarify that, because if we did, I'm very disappointed that we didn't give grants to these. As Swale are doing Sheerness and Sittingbourne, but aren't doing Faversham, I believe, at the moment. Is that correct?
So can you be clear, Councillor Jackson, you're specifically referring to the...
No, I'm not specifically to any. I'm just saying, was there any other ones, or the one from Western?
No other requests for food bank support?
We've only had that one, have we?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And Councillor Ben Martin would like to come in.
Yeah, just to be very clear on that, and putting my Swale hat on for just a second, my understanding is that funding from Swale was offered to Faversham Food Bank, who turned it down. But in terms of the applications here, the reason the West Faversham Community Association Food Bank application was not progressed, there wasn't even a full sentence on each of the questions in the application form. It was incoherent, and compared to the other application that they did for the youth project, which was well written, and all the other applications that were really well written and gave really good evidence, that one was just a poor application, and we couldn't set that precedent as a committee to accept an application and progress it, which didn't have all the information necessary.
All right, we must go back. Councillor Jackson.
If going forward there is an application like that, but it's still a worthwhile application, could we not ask the person or the group to come and make a presentation or look into it further rather than just knock it back?
I mean, my own opinion as chair of the Policy and Finance Committee, Councillor Jackson, is that the grants process is fairly clearly outlined. The procedure that you go through is fairly clearly outlined, and the requirements of the form are fairly clear. We've, you know, not only does that exist, but in this case, there were a further 5 months to gather the evidence you needed to complete that form. I'm comfortable that in previous councils, we've accepted presentations, but this council, including last year, decided that presentations were pretty unfair because not everyone could attend to represent their own interests. I'm honestly clear that the process is so transparent and so easy to operate with and you have enough time to make a good application. But I'm not really sure we need to be allowing special measures for anybody, really. Councillor Jackson.
I'd like to come back on that because this isn't normal times, and with great respect, the last COVID lockdown only occurred about 2 weeks ago. And the food bank at, if we're going to Safe at West Faversham, has had no grants or funding from Swale. As I've said, Sheerness has from Swale and Sittingbourne has, but Faversham hasn't. And yes, it's okay saying Tanner Street, the Faversham Food Bank there, turned down. This is a different food bank, which is doing an awful lot for people who need it.
Councillor Hook, were you wishing to come in? Sorry, you're on mute. Yes.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. I think there might be some cross purposes. The form that Councillor Martin said was submitted that wasn't sufficient in detail, that was a form to Swale Council. I think Councillor Martin was, no, I misunderstood. Oh, I'm so sorry.
The application to Faversham Town Council for the food bank grant was, I'm surprised it was submitted. And when set against the other West Faversham Community Centre application for youth services, which was, an extensive input, and I was both disappointed and surprised at the quality of the food bank application.
Any other comments here? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, on that point, it is rare that I always try and look for good in applications, and particularly in this one. Unfortunately, there was no indication of what the funding would be used for. There was no indication of how and the funds would be used, and to be fair, it just said basically, if you'd have had to write a sentence, it would have said, "We're a food bank, give us £800." That was it. It didn't say what for or anything, and I'm afraid there was plenty of chance to put something in there that was a little more coherent, that would have probably generated the acceptance of the Policy and Finance Committee for that grant. But I'm afraid there are some things that we can be as generous as possible with, but in this instance, on that particular one, and it was the only one, I think, other than one from an individual, which we can't accept, that meant that it was not put forward to this for this purpose. I don't know. I'm not going to comment any further on the food banks or bank at West Faversham, because I don't know what other agencies they use and what ticketing system they use to give out their food and what have you. So, and had some of that information been in the application, then it may have been looked at more favourably.
Thank you. Any other comments on?
The only thing I would say is that it did state it was for fresh food resources such as vegetables, fruit, bread and milk during the new lockdown. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Saunders?
Apologies, Madam Mayor, for arriving late on the meeting, and I haven't heard all of this discussion. From what I have heard, I would agree that it was an unfortunately weak application from West Faversham, and I think it was probably appropriate for the committee to turn it down. However, I do think when you review the full range of applications we put in, I don't know what Councillor Jackson said initially, but I think in our grant, in the grants we've given, we haven't given any funding, I don't think, possibly to the Umbrella Centre to tackle some of the problems that people may be facing, partly because of the pandemic, but also because of the lack of government support and the fact that some residents may be facing a very difficult winter. And I wonder, again, I've missed the beginning of the discussion, whether there is still money in the grant budget, and whether it would be possible for us to contact those organisations who are involved in this work to see whether they would be, whether they do need support, and whether they could make properly presented applications to us for support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Martin?
Given that Councillor Barker did say that the Policy and Finance Committee would be considering another application that did arrive a little late, perhaps if that were to be represented, we could look at it at that time. But we do have to bear in mind that the budget is limited. Although we had deferred 2 of the community grant applications to the youth working group because they have a budget which through no fault of anybody's has not really been dipped into as much as we would have hoped this year. Pandemic's come and squashed a lot of what we were hoping to do in that area. Perhaps we could accept a further application with some more clarity in it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Barker, are you happy with that? Do we ask them to resubmit an application? And
so I think the, as I suggested before, there's just over £5,000 left in this budget if the Youth Community Committee is able to accept the applications from Creed Outdoor Learning Trust and the West Faversham Community Centre Youth Drop-In within its budget spend for this civic year, which leaves us, just over £5,000 of the community grants to spend. I know that the Abbey Physic Garden is submitting an application. I think if the West Faversham Community Centre wanted to resubmit the West Faversham Community Centre Food Bank proposal, then both could be looked at by the next Policy and Finance Committee.
I've actually given my Swale grant. I have actually done the one for West Faversham and given them the £800. So it's not a case of giving it now. I was talking about going forward because I was so disappointed when I listened into Policy and Finance. I felt it was such a needy cause. So that has been dealt with.
So your concerns are recognised, Councillor Jackson, but just to reiterate again, anybody that turns up with a slip of paper just to say, I want cash, isn't good enough. We have a process, we have a form, they had the opportunity and they didn't take it.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, Ben Martin, you would like to come in.
It appears that the debate has reached a point where there's a proposal to reopen grant applications. Can I have confirmation that is the case?
I think that's for the Policy and Finance Committee to agree.
Yes.
Which is what's going to happen at the next Policy and Finance Committee meeting. I'm not asking this town council to recommend anything at this point in time. I'm still
Wonderful stuff.
our way through the Policy and Finance Committee minutes and get the recommendations that were put forward agreed by this town council.
Right, thank you. So have we a proposer to accept those?
I propose that we accept the recommendations that were made by the Policy and Finance Committee.
Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Councillor Martin, thank you. Can we all vote on that? Thank you. That's everyone, I think, on that.
That's it for me, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just confirm, was that everybody in agreement or was there anybody against?
Councillor Jackson, I think, abstained at the very least. I'm not sure, she might have, will have disagreed.
I think so.
Yes, I will vote against.
You'll vote against?
Yes.
Can we just confirm, that was there anybody else that voted against or any abstentions? Just the one.
Thank you. To confirm requirements for ongoing support and maintenance for the Town Council website, tabled. Do you just need us, Town Clerk, do you just need us to agree that?
I'd like Councillor Barker to speak on this if he's happy, and I think it needs to be an agreement what maintenance or hosting packages we need to agree.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
I'm just going to have to find the paper again.
Sorry, yeah.
Apologies.
Just to confirm, the hosting is £25 a month. We don't have a choice on that. We need our site hosted. And the maintenance packages start at £35 a month. And within that, the monthly updates to core code, critical updates as and when released, a firewall, a malware scanning, and 30 days off server backups along with observer backups. They're also offering a monthly maintenance package, which would include supported hours, and they're talking 4 hours a month, potentially £195 a calendar month. I think that's probably a little bit more than we're probably looking to pay.
I also think it's more than we need as well. So the basic support package gives us everything we need as a council. It still exceeds what we were getting from the previous website. So I would recommend that we accept the minimum support package.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or a seconder? Councillor Williams.
I'm happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can we all vote on that to accept that? Yes, I think everyone is there with that. Thank you. Item 9, Youth Working Group. Could I ask Councillor Irwin, maybe between us, Councillor Irwin, we could update on the youth work. Already we have been told how difficult this year, and it really has been a difficult year as far as the youth. And so if you could just update where you think we are with it. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm off mute. I think as already has been alluded to already, it has been a particularly challenging year. Working group, but by its very nature, youth work requires outreach and one-to-one working. I would say that you know, there have been any number of virtual events which have happened this year, which have been moderately successful, but I think we need to acknowledge that we've certainly been behind the curve in terms of our spending. What we have, we had money in at the start of the year, start of the financial year, based on decisions made, obviously at the end of 2019, to support a detached youth worker. I think on reflection, the group has recognised that there are a number of groups working with youth in the town. Some of those have been formally commissioned by KCC to deliver services. Other providers are more voluntary in nature. And what essentially we have decided to do is to spend the next 2 months meeting with first of all KCC, who we're speaking with this week, and then providers, really with a view to understanding what the current provision is, what is being commissioned, and conducting a gap analysis. And the idea is that we will, for next year, when hopefully the COVID restrictions are lifted, we can apply the funding appropriately. It's highly probable that we'll be carrying over funding from this year to next, because it's important. Obviously, we don't spend for the sake of it, and we spend appropriately. So I think that pretty much summarises the discussion on our last meeting. One thing I think is important to mention is we did make a recommendation, and it was that, and I think Councillor Barker has already mentioned it, was to recommend that the West Faversham Community Centre Association grant application, as well as the Creed Outdoor Learning application, out of the Faversham grants budget. Personally, a personal opinion, is in light of the discussions we've had this evening, I would suggest that we reconsider that recommendation, if that is allowed. Town Clerk?
Yes, that's absolutely fine. You can withdraw that recommendation if it's agreed by the working.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Martin would like to come in. Councillor Ben Martin.
I think I'm right in saying we could amend the motion without the recommendation without notice, to read, instead of taking it from the grant pot, it comes out of the youth working budget. If that's the case, I would like to propose that we do that, so that we actually get the ball rolling on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
I would second that amendment. I think it's absolutely important that we support these organisations without further delay. So I would second that.
Thank you. Can we vote on that, unless there's any other comment? Councillor Jackson?
Yes. I'm quite happy to go ahead with it, but there was clarifications that we needed, wasn't there, about the Creed one? We need clarification that it was for the Faversham youth. I think minutes. Yeah. Have we had that clarification?
We're not sure when
the centre. Give him my vote on that one. I'm happy for it to come out of the budget eventually, if we get that clarification.
Councillor Barker.
My recommendation would be that we accept the proposal, subject to them clarifying they are.
Yeah. Yes. We need that clarification, don't we? Of where.
And once it's agreed.
Would anyone second that? I'm happy to second Councillor Barker with clarification.
I'm happy to accept the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you. Could we vote on that? Thank you. And yes. Thank you, Councillor Irwin, as well.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, could I ask that we accept the minutes of the meeting?
Sorry, yes, we need to accept the minutes. Have we got a proposer? Councillor Martin?
I believe Councillor Irwin was proposing. I was just seconding.
Thank you. And can we all vote on that? All right, thank you. Item 10 is Heritage Working Group to receive the minutes dated the 23rd of November and agree recommendations. I think that's Councillor T. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't go through too much. There is one recommendation, which I believe I think if my memory serves me right, is also part of our private session. Maybe it should be, but basically to recommend that the Town Council approves the loan agreement and rehousing of the Shand fire pump. There is a draft loan agreement with Shepherd Neame Limited that they would take on the Faversham Shand fire pump, which is a horse-drawn fire engine, for those that don't know, that's currently just stored in a a building in Newnham, and they would add it to their hopefully their driveway that they use, where they store all their existing historic vehicles that they bring in for the various bits of people. And therefore that is the only recommendation from the Heritage Group at this time. And there is a document, there is a copy of the loan agreement on the rear of the notes.
Okay. Yes.
I will propose that.
I would second that. And no other comment? Oh, the Williams?
Yeah, I just want to excuse my ignorance. So is this loan? Is this basically an agreement just for them to house it? Is it a monetary? Is there money involved in this? Because I obviously I'm not on the Heritage Group, so I'm being a part of the conversation.
No, there's. Sorry, yeah, it's not a monetary thing. In fact, Shepherd Neame have kindly said that they would look after the fire pump, and they would, whilst they will inform us if it ever gets damaged, and we would indemnify them against any loss or damage in this. It's really so that the town council's asset, and it would be easier for people to see it, and
Yes.
more people would see it. I defer to Councillor Ben Jay.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, I think this is basically the bog standard thing that you do with a museum when, if you're a family, you offer to, let's say you had a member of your family in the past get a medal for whatever reason, you offer it on loan for a period of time. And essentially, it's exactly the same as I think an agreement that I saw a few years back from my family with the Fleur de Lis. So it's a fairly standard one.
Thank you. And if it's horse-drawn, would it be Shepherd Neame's one of their horses that would be drawing it? We had it in town for any event. Councillor Martin.
We haven't gone down that route.
No.
The last time I saw that being drawn, other than being on a vehicle and just unloaded, was by the Sea Cadets in the carnival.
Okay.
But that's a long time ago.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say a few words on it as well, just for clarification. The Shan fire pump is currently stored in a shed outside of Faversham, and it actually does require some degree of repair as well. Shepherd Neame have kindly offered to carry out those repairs. So I think it's a good offer, and the loan agreement means that at any point we would have it out. We can continue to do that, and it will be housed in Faversham.
That sounds all very good. Thank you. So do we have a proposer for that recommendation? We do, Councillor Martin, and I'm happy to second that. Can we all vote on that? Lovely, thank you. And item 11, public spaces. Councillor Thomas, are you happy to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose to the council that we accept the minutes of the Public Spaces Committee. I do have a couple of comments on the minutes. Minute 88, any other business. I would just like to reassure Mr. Oswald Jones that I will be working and continue to work with the town clerk in identifying the cause of not being able to join these meetings. It needs to be resolved, and I'm quite determined that it will. Also, just to advise the council that the reason the Public Spaces Group use Teams is currently the KCC officers haven't got agreements from their IT department to use Zoom. However, I have asked Mr. Blackburn if there's a contact I can have at KCC, because I know that Swale Borough Council have authorised their officers to use Zoom as long as it's via the web browser and not via the app. So I'm hoping there might be a solution to that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments at all? No? Oh, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I really do appreciate these minutes, Councillor Thomas. Just as a word of advice for the Swale officer that couldn't join, he needs to contact IT services and they'll activate his Teams account on his Swale server. They have to request it. I don't know why. It's bizarre. And also, I think I forwarded you details on a charity that are able to help with funding of some highways projects, which I hope will be forming in the next set of minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Right. Do we have a proposer to accept public spaces?
Madam Mayor, can I speak?
Recommendation first. Sorry?
I did have my hand up. I would like to make a comment.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Jack. You've moved.
Item 80. That's already, the ball has started rolling on that. I believe Louise has applied for my grant money for this. And I went out yesterday with Tim Stoner and Amanda to choose the positions. 3 places have been chosen and they will be put to the residents as to where they would like it or any objections that they have got on that one.
Oh, thank you. That sounds great. Thank you very much. So we're there now, aren't we? Yes, we all agreed. No other comments? No? So
sorry, Madam Mayor, could we have a proposer and seconder for the minutes?
Yes, that's what I was. Proposer is Councillor Thomas and seconder is Councillor Williams. And can we all vote? Okay, thank you. So that was the minutes and now that's it, isn't it, for that one? Public spaces. So we're on to item 12, Neighbourhood Plan. Councillor Irwin.
May I just come in at this point?
Oh,
because,
yes.
The minutes sent out aren't the correct ones.
Right.
So can we defer the agreement of the minutes until the next meeting, please? But Councillor Irwin has a recommendation to put forward.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Town Clerk. Just to be clear, I think I actually have a copy of the minutes which were approved. I think it's cock up rather than conspiracy that were wrong.
Yeah.
But I can certainly give you an update on those minutes, even though you won't be able to look at them in front of you. Actually, items 1 to 4 on the minutes you have are correct. Just a few updates on item 4, update and surveys. The resident survey has now gone out, and I hope that you've all received a copy alongside every other household in Faversham. The deadline for returning that survey is the 9th of December. That survey will help, along with the feedback that we've got from the exhibitions, and any additional feedback we get will help inform our decisions around the policies. So important, and we will certainly next meeting update in terms of number of respondents, etc.
Okay.
Item 5, update and policy drafting. It's incorrect in your minutes, but just to tell you, we have a copy of the first draft of the policies, and just to make it clear, these are very high-level, generic policies which outline many of the areas we wish to look into. We will be working with our volunteer technical group to work on those policies over the coming months, and essentially we will get those out for consultation early in the new year. But that is something that we're spending quite a lot of time on at the moment. Item 6 was around identification of the neighbourhood plan sites and site-specific policies. I think this is quite an important area, and I'll update you on it very briefly. So as you know, the sites have been allocated by Swale Borough Council, the sites that we expect to see in the updated local plan. We have started to reach out to the owners or promoters, developers of those sites. And to date, we've had a meeting with two of those promoter owners. So we've had a meeting with the Duchy of Cornwall. We've actually got another one scheduled this week. And we've also had a meeting with Kevin Atwood and his promoter as well. So they're ongoing. The meetings are, we have notes from those meetings that they're available and they'll be posted on the website in due course. Understandably, some of the discussions we have with those developers are confidential in nature. They represent ongoing discussions that they are having in terms of KCC and Swale Borough Council. But those meetings have started. A couple of other things very quickly. We are looking at 2 additional sites which we think are of particular importance, both for the visitor economy and the economy at large. One of those is the basin and the Upper Creek that we're looking at. So area focused around the town quay. I know there's some ongoing work within the Faversham Society and other groups within the town to look at the ownership of that site with the view to bringing it back into local ownership. It's currently owned by Swale Borough Council. That's not a core part of the neighbourhood plan, but of course it will have implications for it, and the other area being the basin. And secondly, the engine sheds, which are out to towards the east, which are 2 listed buildings. I do have a recommendation. One of the things that has come out of the local plan recommendations is that in addition to the 3,300 sites that have been identified by Swale, they have indicated that they would like the neighbourhood planning group to identify up to 200 sites for 200 houses in Faversham, bringing up the total to 3,500. The recommendation is that we conduct a call for sites. And that call for sites specifically will be for sites within the existing town boundaries, so not for greenfield sites that sit outside and beyond the current built-up area. So we would anticipate, but we don't know, that many of those sites may be brownfield sites. In fact, I would expect a majority of them would be brownfield sites, given that they're within the existing town boundaries. So that's a recommendation. I don't know if anyone would like to second it.
Councillor Barker.
Second.
Thank you. Do we vote on that? Are we all happy with that? Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Irwin. So we can sign the minutes off next meeting, can we? Town clerk?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so we'll move on to item 13, is the town jetty, to consider a proposal from the Creek Navigation Company to lease the town jetty. Tabled. Councillor Barker.
I'm just minded that the paper we received only a few days ago, and to be honest, there's a lot to process both within the document, and actually I think there's more interrogation or detail required from that document. So I'm going to propose that we hold this over until another meeting, potentially the next Policy and Finance Committee meeting, to review in more detail or get more detail from that document, and not actually discuss it in detail here. So that's my proposal. The proposal is we hold it over to the next Policy and Finance Committee meeting.
I'd like to second that, but are there any other comments before we do that? Councillor Irwin.
Firstly, I agree. It's it's quite a significant proposal to enter into essentially what is would be a 10-year lease with a 5-year break clause. I just want to say that I think this is a welcome proposal. Bringing the town's moorings back up to standard, and ensuring that they're well used is, I think, critical to the development of that area. So I think it's very welcome. But I absolutely understand that it's appropriate, given that this is, you know, a serious commitment, at least that we do take it offline to look at it.
Councillor Saunders.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Councillor Barker's proposal. I'm just wondering though, because the Policy and Finance meeting is still several weeks away, whether in the meantime it would be appropriate perhaps for the town clerk to gain some clarifications about what's in the proposal. So I don't know what other people, I'm quite relaxed about this. If other people don't think that's a good idea, I'm not going to push it, but I think it might be sensible in terms of pushing things along to get a bit clearer on some of the detail of what's being proposed.
I agree on that. Councillor Barker, how do you, oh no, Councillor Martin, is it, with hand up? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Much like Councillor Saunders, I would like some of those clarifications to be sought in the meantime, given the gap between the meetings, and where necessary, to look at whether we require any advice from experts on the property matters from a legal perspective as well.
Councillor Barker.
So, yeah, firstly, as Councillor Owen points out, I don't wish to appear ungrateful for the proposal from Mr. Payne, which is which on face value is positive.
Yeah.
As Councillor Saunders points out, and Councillor Martin, it would probably be good to grasp the nettle, as it were, sooner rather than later. I am happy to lead a small group of people, perhaps collating questions and running and working the town clerk on an investigation.
That sounds a good idea, absolutely. I'd second that.
So I'll extend my proposal, and my proposal is that to work with the town clerk to investigate the proposal in more detail, and that we hold over discussion of the proposal until we have that detail to the next Policy and Finance Committee meeting.
That sounds fine. I'd second that. Anyone else?
No, I was just going to comment.
Yes,
it might be useful. I mean, I've got some questions on the proposal. But I think it's very interesting and exciting.
Yes.
Proposal. We might want to seek a meeting, sit down with Mr. Payne to ask questions and find out directly from him what he's thinking about one or two things that might be covered, might be encompassed by what Councillor Barker meant when he used the word investigates, that might be part of that exercise.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Town Clerk, would it be, and Councillor Barker, would it be advisable to get some of the questions that we're thinking of asking and giving them to Mr. Payne to see if he will come back on them, and then ask him to come and just talk us through if we've got more concerns or more questions?
I've certainly thought about collating all the questions we have between us. I know that there are a few responses via email for questions, and I would certainly canvass further opinion. And it may well be that some of it's substantive enough to warrant a meeting with Mr. Payne, and we may need, as Councillor Martin points out, some external advice on some of the elements. So I think I prefer to sort of take it offline and then collect the questions which you have and consider.
I agree with that proposal. Are we all happy to do that? Thank you. And item 14, community governance review, I think is Councillor Irwin.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, community governance review is something I hadn't heard of until a week or so ago. But what I'm proposing is that we request a community governance review from Swale Parish Council, and let me give you a little bit of background to that. So essentially, community governance reviews are processes whereby borough councils, in this case, can essentially look at parish boundaries to make sure that they are essentially fit for purpose. One of the things which has been clear to me I think it's a catalyst for doing it. It's not the whole reason for doing it, but from my perspective, is that it's clear now how our town's going to grow over the next few years. You know, we know which sites are going to come forward, and we know what the implications of that are for Faversham. In practice, though, a number of those sites do not sit wholly within our parish boundaries. So they sit half in the parish boundary, you know, 3/4 in the parish boundary. But what that means in practice, you know, undoubtedly people who move into those new developments will be Faversham residents, and to suggest anything other than that would be foolish. However, without a boundary change or boundary changes, we will end up in situations whereby those new residents of ours, our new neighbours, won't be represented in Faversham Town Council. Essentially, they won't have any representation at the first tier of local government. It's well recognised that community governance reviews are an appropriate tool to use when these situations arise. It actually mentions specifically in the guidance that they should be considered where you have anomalies and boundaries which are caused by new developments and new housing. So really, you know, doing the community governance review is something for Swale Borough Council. It's not for us. But what I'd like us to do is recommend that Swale Borough Council conduct that governance review. Now, I'm not naive, and I know that such a review, and even requesting such a review, isn't simple. It's going to be a long process, and inevitably, it will involve probably some disquiet amongst our neighbouring parishes, because in effect, what it means is some parishes, neighbouring parishes, may expand. There may be even parts of Faversham that exist as are that would be more appropriately in another parish, but equally some parishes may lose elements of their parish if it were to go a certain way. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a long process, but I think it's really important that we request it, so we don't end up with residents of our town who are not represented, who use Faversham services but are not contributing to them. And I just think it's something that we need to act on now, given that it will take a significant amount of time to actually happen, assuming Swale agree to it, of course.
Councillor Ben Martin.
I would like to second the proposal and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Could we vote? Oh, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I support this motion. One of the anomalies that certainly has happened is where former industrial buildings have been converted into housing. There's a very good example right on the border of the town where there are 10 houses in Desmond Crescent which are in the town, and immediately adjacent to that is an host house with 8 residences which are not. So therefore, I support this proposal, and I realise it does take time. So let's hope some of these anomalies sorted.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments, or shall we vote? Oh, Councillor Hook.
I was just going to express my support to the principle of doing a review about this. We quite often, from time to time, get visitors to the town council who are residents of one of the parishes that are adjacent to us, because quite often they have an issue that's affecting them, but the issue is wound up with Faversham too. I mean, East Kent Recycling, where the expansion of that site, the site I think is in Faversham, just over the line, but actually most of the houses that are nearest to it, a lot of them are in the parish of Orr, and the residents from Orr will often come to us, but of course they don't have the same rights as residents of Faversham. They certainly aren't directly represented here. So I think this is definitely something worth exploring. No, there should be no fixed views about where new boundaries should be. We should follow the evidence about what will be best in the interest of all the people who live in our area, and see what that leads to.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo Councillor Hook's points. I mean, this very evening we've had somebody from the parish of Graveney talk on a motion that we put forward in a couple of minutes' time about the impacts of Faversham. So
Yes.
you know, we are intricately bound by our neighbours, and those that will actually be part of our town really need to be part of that parish. And I'd also like to sort of thank Councillor Irwin for his efforts on neighbourhood planning in general at the moment. I mean, it's a huge body of work, and we have, you know, huge range of support from across the community, which is incredibly important for success. But Councillor Irwin in particular is putting a huge amount of effort into to coordinate us and get us, you know, get us across the line. So I'd like to thank you for his efforts.
I totally agree with that. Totally. So could we vote on that? Oh, Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I plan to support the motion, but I just wondered if Councillor Irwin knew at all about the, and I appreciate he only found out about these a week ago. Does he know at all about the length of time this might be likely to take? And also, presumably the financial implications are for Swale rather than the town council. Thank you.
So just to come back on that, I don't know how long it will take. I can give you some insight into the first steps in the initiation of community governance review. It can happen under two instances. Swale Borough Council can decide to do a community governance review, or we could request a community governance review through local petition. Now, and I think if I'm correct, local petition involves getting 10% of in our case, Faversham residents to request it. It would be significantly quicker if Swale identify that this need exists and decide to do it. As for the time, I really can't comment. Sorry, there was a second part of the
commercial impacts for the council.
Commercial impact. Well, certainly conducting the review would impact on Swale Borough Council. It would be something that they would carry out. If that's what you meant, in terms of a longer term impact, and I'm sure you know this, and it probably wasn't your question, but clearly there is a precept which comes to our parish, and by conducting a community governance review in line with additional 3,500 houses, you know, we would get a precept related to those residencies. So the costs up front would be Swale's.
So it looks like everybody's proposing we go ahead. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I did reserve my right to speak on this one, it's clear that pretty much all of us are in favour. I was going to give a few examples of some really bizarre boundaries in this particular part of the borough. So a prime example is between Brenley Corner and the edge of Faversham town. There is a patch of land which is going to be part of the Duchy development according to the local plan put forward. The majority of that is currently in Bolton and under Blean parish, but there is a slither of triangle which is in Selling parish, and there's another small section which is in the parish of Graveney and Goodnestone. It's bizarre, and you know, there are other locations where you might find that some houses would make more sense being in Ospringe parish or in Faversham parish or vice versa, because the line's in a really bizarre place. There are things that we do need to consider in voting for this, and part of that is that the Boundary Commission would have to review local election boundaries subsequent to this, because you don't normally put one part of a parish in one electoral division for county, or have it covering a particular district seat and have another bit that's in a different one. So in general, there will be some implication in that regard as to how representation in the other tiers of local authority will be impacted, but that's for a matter for after the community governance review is complete. My understanding is regularly these take between 12 and 24 months, depending on how controversial they are. Given the relative location and the relative issues that are faced, I can't see it being a massive issue. I can understand that there may be some requests for funding and some difficulty in finding that from a borough perspective, but that's a matter for us to work out in another place. But I do fully support this. I think, you know, in some ways it's a bit overdue in that there are locations that are in Faversham without, which are classed as being in part of other parishes. And those people do use our services. And from my point of view, I get quite a bit of communication from people that live just over the boundary, and it can be quite frustrating when you have to say, "Right, I'll forward it on to your ward councillor, or I'll forward it on to your parish council," rather than, "Sorry, I'll get this sorted for you." You know.
Agree. Any other comments, or shall we vote on? We are in favour. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Irwin. Item 15, Faversham Lakes, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is just in response to some communication from Anderson's, and to give a bit of context, the reason that communication occurred is that I've been reaching out as part of the Climate and Biodiversity Committee to see that some of these new developments to be, you know, with our pesticide-free town action plan, try and see an improvement on that. And this was a response in broadly from that, and Anderson's, the developer, have applied to the Woodlands Trust to get the 450 tree mix that you can get as an organisation, primarily to work with schools. I think in their case it will be Davington School, and this is to plant on the what will be the country park, so you know, the lake area. So these will be sort of young trees. But I just think it's in the time of kind of negative feeling against development, I think it's quite good to support when positive actions are being taken place. This is no way me saying I support Anderson's as a developer. It's just Anderson's actions in this particular context. So my motion really is just whether the town council can just write a letter of support to Anderson's for their actions, you know, that we're pleased with what they're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd happy to propose that. Has anyone any comments? Councillor Martin.
Very briefly, just to be very clear, I support this idea of planting more trees around new developments and whatnot. And though I may agree at this point with writing a letter of support, it in no way implies any support for any subsequent planning application, reserve matters application, or other such item at Borough. Just to be clear, I'm not predetermining myself in relation to planning applications in the future. Thank you.
About the trees. Thank you. Do we all wish to vote on that proposal? Yes, thank you. And item 16, Councillor Saunders, Cleve Hill Cycle Path.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm sorry I had to miss Mr. Jeffrey's speech. I'm kind of hoping that you're now all very familiar with the concept of the solar cycleway as a result of the presentation. So I won't say a lot. Basically, I just want to talk about the benefits of the cycleway for the residents of Faversham. And I think there are two major benefits. The first one is that having this cycleway would open up a off-road route for cyclists to Sea Salter, which in the end is our nearest beach. It would mean that cyclists didn't have to go along the road from Graveney to Sea Salter, which is quite windy and is quite heavily used by vehicle traffic. So I think it would be a good benefit there. Secondly, I think it would have a positive benefit to our local economy, and particularly the tourist, the visitor economy. We all know that Whitstable is a very attractive place for visitors. At the moment, if you visit there, there's a very good off-road cycle path to Canterbury. There's a very nice cycle ride through to Herne Bay. The route to Faversham is a lot less attractive and involves a lot of road cycling. If we had this pathway, we'd be starting to open up a nice off-the-road route for cyclists to Faversham. It would also mean that there was an extended route from Faversham through to Margate along the coast, with very little road cycling involved in it as well. So I think it would be a good asset to the town. We are on cycle route 1, which potentially I think takes you from Edinburgh to Rome. I mean, I don't think many people do that, but certainly quite a lot of people do cycle from northern France and Holland to London, and I think this would make it an attractive part of the route and therefore encourage people to stay in the local area. So I think for Faversham as a town, leaving aside the other considerations, I think it would be a real asset. And I'm sure, as Mr. Jeffrey's already said, I mean, this development is something that most of us haven't wanted. So to have some positive benefit from the arrival of the solar park, I think would be really good.
Worth the try. Yeah, thank you. I think he also said about the path being good for pushchairs, because we used to walk along the creek with our 2 young daughters all the way to Seasalter Beach, and you could never have pushed a pushchair, or they couldn't have ridden bikes or anything. So I think it will be really, really good for all. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I just want to speak in support of the motion. I think very interestingly, when this discussion first came up, I couldn't quite get my head around. I think I was still quite bitter over the fact that Cleve Hill was happening in the first place. But I think as Mr. Jeffries explained, it's a case of making the best of this situation and making it work for the local community. And I think if local people can access through this route and not be blocked off from a large area of our countryside, so they have a direct route through into our sort of lovely neighbouring kind of coastal towns, I think this will be a really good sort of turnaround from what could have been a negative. So I'm really supportive of this this idea, and I'm quite happy to second the motion, actually.
Thank you. I think Councillor Martin, you'd like to come in.
I was going to make a point of order, Madam Mayor, just to point out that we were debating the motion before it had been seconded.
Right. No, it's been seconded now. Thank you.
Just from my point of view, just to clarify, I appreciate where this motion's coming from. However, my understanding is that reserve matters relating to Cleve Hill will be decided at Swales Planning Committee, and therefore to avoid any perception of predetermination by myself, I will not be voting on it.
Thank you. Can I ask that other councillors, we vote on this proposal? Thank you. Was that 2 abstained?
Yes, I'll abstain.
Thank you. We can move to item 17, receipts and payments. To resolve to approve receipts and payments into private session.
Madam Mayor, if there are no questions on it, I propose that we resolve to approve those payments listed.
We did look. Anyone with any comments?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Barker.
I'd like you to second the proposal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Could we vote on that if there are no comments. Thank you. Now we'll say good evening to all those that are sitting in at home, or as we go in private session. No?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we just need to resolve to go into private session.
Right.
So a proposer and seconder.
I'm happy to
Proposer,
propose.
Councillor Barker.
Yeah, I'm happy to propose we move into.
And second, I will second. And can we just vote on that? Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good night to those that have been